is it's not necessarily Patreon itself that's going to be the biggest hindrance to dealing with what the problem is. It is the payment processors and the backroom financial dealings that are the issue. Patreon has been forced to bend the knee before, and I think that's part of the reason they won't talk about it. Stripe has as well. And when you hear them have conversations with different websites and individuals, you start to pick up on it. That there are decisions coming up from banks and credit card companies dictating policies for these payment processors and these financial middlemen. So when you want to create an alternative service to a Patreon, or create a new video sharing platform, or create a new website, or try to tie it into social media, you have to come to the realization that you are fucking with really powerful, rich individuals. And until you can identify who exactly those powerful, rich individuals are that are taking swings at you, you won't accomplish shit. You need to put a face and a name together. You need to start figuring out exactly who it is at these companies are the ones applying pressure and setting policy when it comes to fucking with people on the internet.
My previous 2 videos looked into how resistant school cabals in Harvard and Berkeley. The resistant school website says that it is empowered by Ragtag, and Ragtag has some interesting affiliations and handles operations similar to those described by the congressman at Sundar Pachai's hearing. We're inviting far-left radicals and holding seminars on how to overthrow the U.S. government.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Jordan, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pachai, in your opening statement, you said, "I lead this company without political bias and work to ensure that our products operate that way." Ileana Murillo is Google's head of multicultural marketing. Does Ms. Murillo do good work?
I'm not directly familiar with her work, but she's an employee of Google, and we are proud of our employees.
Well, you praised her work. The day after the 2016 election, in a 4-page email she wrote about her work with the Latino vote, she said, "Even Sundar gave our effort a shout-out." Is she referring to you there?
She was referring to my communication around translation for a different related effort.
Okay, well, I'm going to look at 2 other sentences she had in that long email, again, recapping her work in the 2016 election with the Latino vote. She said this: "We pushed to get out the Latino vote with our features." A few lines down in her email, she qualified that sentence, and she said, "We pushed to get out the Latino vote with our features in key states." And she specifically cites the states Florida and Nevada. Near the end of her email, in a similar sentence, she says, "We supported partners like Voto Latino to pay for rides to the polls in key states." With me?
Ragtag is building a movement of technologists to amplify the progressive organizing in innovative and high-impact ways. Use your powers for good. Join the Ragtag team. Ragtag's volunteers include developers, content creators, strategists, designers, data scientists, organizers, and managers. Ready to join? And look at all their political affiliates. I don't know who half of them are. Run for something, I assume it has to do with voting. Spread the vote. AZ Dems. Digi Dems. March for Our Lives. Little New York Democrat donkey. I'm starting to see a theme. And in fact, it was Ragtag who built the March for Our Lives website. They operate campaign help desks for election campaign assistance, web squads for design and implementation of campaign websites, and content strategy and training, and carpool canvassing events. Activists from solidly blue districts need ways to travel to contested districts where their work will have a greater impact. That sounds like election fucking meddling to me, doesn't it? Inspired by technology built in 2016 that allowed thousands to travel. What the fuck am I reading? That allowed thousands to travel from California to Nevada. Nomad helps volunteers form carpools to travel from their home location to a canvassing event, making it easier to participate in political activism. So when they were saying we're being bussed in from across the country and that was a conspiracy theory, no, that shit is right fucking here. So now we're at Project Nomad. Get canvassers canvassing where it matters most. Nomad is a virtual corkboard where volunteers driving from safely democratic areas to neighboring districts can offer rides to volunteers who can't drive themselves. Learn more about Nomad. Nomad Interest Form. Candidate name. The information you submit to this form will be used to contact you and to provide the Nomad services you're requesting. What office is the candidate running for? It's some ironic shit when people always talk about community, local governance, democracy, right? Holy shit.
I want to kind of analyze those two sentences. We pushed to get out the Latino vote with our features in key states. We supported partners like Voto Latino to pay for rides to the polls in key states. Is it fair to say the we in both sentences, Mr. Pachai, refers to Google?
Congressman, we are very concerned whenever there are allegations like that. Our team looked into it.
I'm not asking that question. I'm asking, is it fair to say the we in both sentences refers to the company Google?
As Google, we wouldn't participate in any partisan efforts around any civic process, so I don't think so.
So we pushed and we supported partners like Voto Latino to pay for rides and polls in key states, and we pushed to get out the Latino vote during the 2016 election. And how were they getting that done? They were getting that done by, according to Ms. Murillo, your head of multicultural marketing, by altering your features or configuring your features in such a way and for paying for rides for people to get to the polls. Is that an accurate reading of those? That's all I'm asking. Is that fair to say what those sentences are talking about?
Not aware of all the specifics, but we did look into it. We found no evidence that there were any activity like that from Google towards that organization.
So she's not telling the truth?
Yes, that's right. We haven't found any evidence to substantiate any.
So she just made it up out of thin air the day after the election and wrote this email to your top executives, and it's not true?
Congressman, I'm happy to follow up, but I think the employees today do their own activities.
We don't want the follow-up. I want the real answers right here in this committee. Well, I just think it's interesting, Mr. Chairman, I know I'm over time, but I think it's interesting that their head of multicultural marketing writes an email the day after the election where she talks about 71% of Latino votes voted for Hillary, but that wasn't enough. And she talks about paying for rides to the polls in key states for Latino votes to get out the Latino vote in key states. And the head of the company says that's not accurate. Does Ms. Murillo still work for the company?
It's my understanding she does, yes, sir.
Is it true that she sent that email, or could that be fake news?
My understanding is that there were emails which were sent.
In my last video, the one to which this is a follow-up to, I looked into the resist cabals at Harvard and Berkeley. It's worth mentioning that Eliana Murillo, mentioned in the previous clip as Google's head of multicultural marketing, was also a Harvard grad. You may have heard the recent news that David Hogg is going to be going to Harvard, despite subpar test scores. Scores far below the bottom tier of Harvard students, sparking debate on whether Harvard should have admitted him, or if test scores are even useful at all. But Hogg getting into Harvard isn't so surprising when you realize that Ragtag, who built the Resist School websites, also built the March for Our Lives website. They provide ongoing support to March for Our Lives, and even built action tools such as ResistBot. ResistBot sends resist as a direct message to be heard by your officials. Using their figures, they claim that 1% of midterm voters were resist-botters, in a comment that got 27 likes. Pretty ironic from a group always calling others bots. And I'm sure they're 100% American bots with no outside influence at all.
So I don't know how it's going to turn out. I just think it's going to get worse. I think more people will be driven off Patreon and PayPal and all these other payment processors. I think more people are going to be deplatformed on social media. I think people are going to lose their web domains. I think people are going to lose their social media accounts. Remember, the 2020 elections, that's the big thing. A lot of interested groups realized they fucked up with Donald Trump. They thought it was enough of a joke that they could stop paying attention and that he would, self-implode. So yeah, let them talk about it on Twitter. Let them make money making videos talking about it. And then he got elected. And everybody in Silicon Valley and all these, different financial groups thought, holy shit, we can't let that happen again. And so you start to see kind of a targeted approach to taking out political pundits, really, and, those that appeal to that base. Let's remove them. Let's limit their voice. Let's segregate and quarantine them. And I think that push is going to continue and get even bigger leading up to the next presidential election, because they are not going to let it happen again. They are not going to let you guys talk about it on Twitter. They are not going to let you guys make YouTube videos. They are not going to let you guys make fucking streams about it. They are going to segregate you, and they are going to quarantine you. And they have a lot of ways of doing that.